So I said to the plumber, the leaks are real, but your bill is ridiculous. No, I'm just kidding. I heard that the other day. I heard that joke. I thought it was hilarious. Sorry. The leaks are real, but the bill is ridiculous.
Complete non sequitur. Go ahead.
All plumbers' bills are ridiculous.
No, it's just it's a timely joke. Trying to make a timely joke. The leaks are real. All right. Okay. So we got a lot to talk about today. Russ, what do you got going on though?
Well, aside from telling my dog Jordan to hop up somewhere, there's a baseball game going on today, and the New York Mets are playing the Boston Red Sox. And batting eighth for the New York Mets is Tim Tebow. And so here's what I want to say.
I heard he's trying out with the Jets next year in the NHL. Is that true?
Listen, the Jets already had that disaster. It only seems to affect
the Winnipeg Jets. Winnipeg Jets. The NHL.
The Jets.
Yeah.
This only seems to afflict my teams, but that's okay. I'm going to speak for the rest of Met fans and maybe baseball fans too. Here's the thing. Tim Tebow is a great athlete, right? He's in shape. He looks good. He says the right things. People like Tim Tebow. Still doesn't mean he can play baseball. He hit 194 in the Arizona Fall League. The Mets are batting him eighth. They will sell out the game. They will sell a lot of jerseys. He'll probably go 1 for 4. And again, who knows if he'll even get a hit off of Rick Porcello, who's only going to be in there for 2 innings. Garth Brooks went 1 for 39 in spring training. Now, he was never trying to be a baseball player, and he got a hit. So, of course, Tebow will get a hit, and the Twitter will explode.
The question is, will he be better than Michael Jordan? Because remember, Michael Jordan played Double-A.
Yes. No.
He had
pretty good, wasn't he? I mean, like half decent.
I mean, Jordan. The problem with Jordan was he hit for a very low average
because he had a big strike zone. He was a 6 foot, so that's why.
But I think Jordan will prove to be a better hitter because he did do it at the Double-A level. While they're playing with major leaguers here, by the second, third inning, they won't be. Right. And so this is just a way for the Mets to throw Tebow in there, get some publicity, sell jerseys, and really anger their regular fans because he's taking at bats away from Michael Conforto and other guys that are vying for real jobs.
If only there were more baseball games to play, Russ, that they could actually get bats in.
Well, I get what you're saying, but the point is the Mets are adding to the mockery of all this. If he makes the Mets, fine. I will shut up about it. But he actually has to make the team opening day, and so until then, I'm not shutting up about it.
But if he makes the Mets, you're going to think it's some sort of conspiracy, or it's going to be a publicity.
No, I'll just think it's stupid, but I'll live with it. All right. So I'm having a little Twitter conversation with Ty.
One second. I want to add something to this brief pre-conversation here. There's the two things. Well, one, Tim Tebow is what he is, right? He's a cultural phenomena. He's very popular among the religious people in the country. And I have friends who are, and I think he seems like a great person.
Yeah.
There's no harm. He's very, and it is an interesting twist, like what just happened with him. The bigger issue, and this is kind of like aside from Tim Tebow and all the crazy Tim Tebow, for some reason my mind goes to this because of where I am right now in youth soccer and all that stuff with my daughter. But I've always had this theory, and I'm one of the few people who have this theory, that the great athletes, the great players in various sports, like Crosby, or just like throw out, I don't know, Brady, or and Jordan's a good example of this, right? The great athletes in any sport, had they chosen to play a different sport, would have probably been great in that sport as well. And I always did believe that. Like, I do believe that there's something to this. That yes, your skills might be suited for one sport more than others, but the great athletes are great athletes, and quite often in high school, and before that, you see this. You see like superstars in baseball, football that are in
I think there was a real life guy like that. His name was Jim Thorpe. I mean,
yeah, but there would be more. There should be more of them now because we have better kids. But why we don't have this, okay, is because elite sports force kids to play one sport only at a certain age. And that's a big problem. It's a big.
Bo Jackson was a. We're gonna have bad.
Yeah. Bo Jackson is a great example, Mike. You're right.
I'm gonna log back on because
log back on. But I've seen this. I've seen kids who just choose to play I mean, and this is the whole argument with hockey in the U.S., right? The best athletes in the U.S. are not playing hockey. They're playing football and baseball and basketball sometimes. And that's why you don't get the great athletes, the great players from America. Now you get more players in America playing hockey, but there really are only so many elite athletes.
Well, it's also the cost. We have to
factor, no question. But there's only so many elite athletes to go around.
Hold on. I don't want to gloss it over because, like, I know a family going through this right now who are very well off, middle-class family. Both parents work. They're driving hundreds of miles every weekend, and their kids moving up the ladder. I'm watching them because I'm a prospect guy, but it's costing them a lot of money.
It's ridiculous. I remember talking to Danny Breer about this, and he's been through youth hockey a lot like that. And he says he honestly doesn't know how people can afford to play.
Right.
And and that's a pro player. He's like, I can afford it, but but I can afford to have like 3 different nannies running kids to different spots, and then and afford to have like different. It's just totally crazy. So I do agree with the price. I mean, that's why I didn't play ice hockey as a kid. I played football and did really well in it, but I wanted to play hockey. That's the only sport I wanted to do. They really wanted to do. I mean, I would have given up football in a split second if I could have afforded to play hockey, but I couldn't. Right. So that's true. But I do think the elite athletes are the elite athletes. Like I think that there's a point at which that this happens, and
I think so.
I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand.
He's not proven to be an elite athlete in anything other than college football.
No, right, exactly. No, and I'm not for Tebow. I'm not saying, but I do wish. I don't understand. But I think our country has the ability, or sports in general, youth sports has the ability to have more multi-sport athletes than they do. But they just force these kids into playing 12 months a year, and it's not good for them. It's really not good for them.
Talking about Tebow, I mean, the thing is, Russ, he did get in the playoffs with Denver.
If you watched it, though, he did have a great team. He had a great offensive line. He had some impact. He did. But there's a reason why the rest of the league really didn't want him after that.
Well, the reason is because he's a cultural phenomena, and look at how Denver was excoriated after they decided to go away from him and get rid of him. I mean,
he was good with the Jets, though. The Jets would have used him in every situation. He just wasn't that good, Mike.
He was yo-yoed in and out of the. I mean, I don't think putting in a position to defend Tim Tebow because I don't think he's that good of a quarterback. But he was yo-yoed in and out of the lineup and used.
You just said it. He wasn't that good of a quarterback, but it worked out for him with that Denver team. It did.
Yeah, but
I'm not going to take it away from him.
There are other examples of multi-sport athletes. Jim Brown with lacrosse and with football. Bo Jackson, as I said before. I mean, so
even Bo Jackson is years ago now. Like and that's what I'm saying is
But I interview all these kids, and they're not allowed. They just
why that is they're not
at 13 years old. They cut them off from playing.
Right. And that's I coach a soccer team that is we're one of the we're I think 14th in the state in our age group. We're a good team. We go against some teams like this weekend coming up. We have a tournament. We're going to play like the 6th team in the state and I think the 4th team in the country. And they're probably going to beat us. But because these kids are practiced 4 nights a week, around the clock, and our kids play. We're one of the highest ranked teams. And I'm very proud of this. That allow our kids to play lacrosse, allow our girls to do swimming, allow our girls to do other sports. And I'm really proud of the fact that we do that. That really means something because, as a kid, I love the fact that I had a baseball season, then I had a football season, then I had a basketball season, and I love that my daughter literally plays soccer around the clock, and she wants to. That's the only sport she really likes. But in a way, there's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The fact that she's just had so much soccer that she hasn't really been exposed to other sports. She couldn't afford to play ice hockey. She's starting to play ice hockey a little bit. But
we're only talking about competitive. There are plenty of kids who will play with their friends, play basketball, besides being hockey players. But we're talking about competitive. So that is a difference.
Competitive, yeah. And it as a coach from our side of things, it's very hard to keep a competitive team together because there are some kids like, I want to be on the 4th team in this state, not the 14th team in the state. So I'm going to go to that team over there and play, but they're not going to let me play lacrosse. And then this is the other thing. This is the crazier thing. We got to get going. This is the crazier thing. They're not even allowing them to play high school sports. Like that's a big thing. Like our travel team will say, you can't play on your high school soccer team.
Right.
Because you have to just play where our and that is another thing that we will not do.
Well, hockey doesn't do that because like USHL, you could play on a high school team and play there on weekends. There have been players that have done it.
But there are some travel hockey teams that don't let you play.
I know, but you don't parents could take charge of that if they want to.
Yeah, Russ,
It's hard because, I mean, I've been on both sides of it as a parent and a coach, and it's hard because if you want to stay on that team, your kids have friends on that team they've been with since they're 7 or 8 years old. It's hard, and you have to really, if a coach just or a club above the coach even just decides to become jerks all of a sudden and say this is the rules that we're going to enforce, you're stuck.
Russ, why don't we save the Gretzky tie thing till tomorrow?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
You know, and this is why, you know, they'll end on this. This is why that I was with a really prominent. Our team was with a prominent soccer club in the area, and last year left that soccer club with our entire team because of all the craziness that the prominent soccer club was going to say, oh, you weren't allowed to play in your high school anymore. So we left them, and we took our entire team to another place and played there. And it was a great lesson for them. But it's crazy how we don't let kids play more than one sport. It's just really ridiculous. It's bad for them in every which way. I think it's bad for them mentally. They need a break from things. It's bad for them in every way. Let's start. Here we go. We're starting here. Bing, 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 bing. All right. We'll start here. Hello, Hockey World. It is Wednesday, March 8th, 2017.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday. It's available on iTunes, on your Apple, in the Apple world, or wherever great podcasts are served up. You can find us as well.
Tune in radio.
Yep. And all over the place,
Hello.
basically. So I'm going to pause. Let's mute Russ for a second while I talk to somebody. Here we go. Okay. So the and you know so wherever you can find your podcast, you can find us, and we're supported by listeners like you at patreon.com/hockey. We really appreciate your support, and we have some fun things coming up for you guys in the future. So thank you for going to patreon.com/hockey and putting whatever little bit you can in. It helps keep us going here, and we really, now that we're out of the trade deadline, we have a little more time. We can do some fun things for you guys. Here we go. Let's start off today with we have the business of hockey today to talk about a little bit on a lot of levels. Actually, there's three business hockey stories today. So I'm trying to bore you guys to tears because we do have a nice little playoff race going, but we have three business stories. I'm going to go in what I think I'm going to get rid of the first couple quickly. Okay, so let's go with the salary cap. The salary cap is being raised apparently if the players want it to be raised.
Yes.
Which means they're going to have to pay more escrow. But it could go up $2 to $3 million. That is good news for some of the teams who really were terrified of the flat cap.
Yes,
but go ahead, Mike. Explain
But the indications are right now, and obviously the season is not over with, so the final revenue is not determined. But the way it sounds, it's either going to be it going down to 71 million, or the 5% escalator would be to get it to around 75.5 to 76. There might be a negotiation like there was last year, because there was a negotiation between the PA and the owners and the league to get the cap to 73. But we know that the players are sick and tired of escrow. So honestly, with the small and not very good free agent class that's coming out, I think they're going to say screw the escrow, and it's going to go down to 71 million.
And that's what I think they should do. Let it be a realistic number. Going up to the other number, they're then rolling the dice that revenues will be good and they won't have to, lose an escrow, and they could gain some extra salaries for players. But that's rolling the dice. You don't know what's going to happen.
You put money on this one, Mike?
Just leave it the same. I would leave it the same.
Well, I mean,
going down doesn't make much sense.
They will vote to raise it. They will vote.
I think they'll negotiate it to stay the same.
Right. I think it'll stay the
They
same.
They may, but I think it's very possible that they could vote to raise it this time around. Because
tell me why it's a positive to raise it.
Because the escrow has never been something they haven't gotten back. The escrow,
last year they didn't get it back.
There you go.
Did they? I thought they did.
They did not get it back. Last year they yeah.
Okay, then I stand corrected. I'm sorry. I thought that was the case. I'm really sure about that. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure about it. Yeah.
Because I talk to players all the time. I never heard that they didn't get it back last year, but maybe they didn't. If they didn't, then yeah, there's something more to think about here. But the bottom line is the escrow really is just, it's a safeguard put in place. It makes sense what it is. I can see it being negotiated out of the next CBA, but I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know, because you really need some kind of wiggle room here based on we don't know exactly what revenues are going to be, and you don't know where the Canadian dollar is going to be, which is really the wiggle room you need. Really, the Canadian dollar. It really comes down to. I'm not getting an echo, Mike. I don't know about you.
Okay.
But yeah, the wiggle room to me is needed, and I think maybe you somehow can tie it automatically to the Canadian dollar. Because that's really what it comes down to. It really comes down to the Canadian dollar. They pretty much know how much they're going to make.
I'm not saying that they were going to get rid of escrow. Yeah, they probably realize that's going to get. But what I am saying is
Michael, break it up. You should probably log out and log in. I think you're on bad internet right now.
Okay.
Maybe do some modem resetting or something. Sorry.
But we're at a number where we're basically back to the days of when Bobby Hall was making too much money.
But what happens here is, and this is true, I think you'll agree with me on this. When they don't raise it, it's not going to suddenly be the fact that TJ Oshie's not going to get his money. It's going to be the fact that the fourth liners are not going to get as much money. They're going to, and that's who gets hurt with these things. It's not. There will still be a battle for the UFAs. There will still be a fight going on for the top UFAs. The top.
I'm going to log out because I'm back.
Okay, it's weird. I was telling Russ, Mike, and he agreed with me completely, 100%, without any thought. That just kidding. that this, by not raising the escrow, you don't affect the fact that TJ Oshie is going to get more money. You affect the fact that the third and fourth liners are going to get 800,000 versus 1 million. That's really what it comes down to. You end up, or 600,000 versus. It really does affect the lower tier guys. It's not going to. You're still going to have a bidding war for the top players. You just are. And so when the cap does not go up or even goes down, you end up in a spot where it really affects the players who really need the money the most. The players who have like a 1 or 2 year career, they have to make as much as they can in that period of time.
But you also have to factor in you're going to have 23 more NHL jobs.
Right.
Well, you are, but that's not going to.
It's going to open up space for people who are claimed.
No, it is going to open up space for jobs, no question about it. But that. So can you sit there and say? I don't know.
Here's the thing.
This is better.
Leave it the same. If they make more money, fantastic. Everybody will do well. I think, unfortunately, the league and the players sometimes feel like they need to tweak this number to show that the league is prosperous. They don't need to do that.
I think it's a combination of. I don't think the players care about the league being prosperous. I do think the league is there. I agree with you on that. But I think the players just don't want their cap to go down and their money to go down. The fact of the matter is, if the salary cap goes down, there should be a percentage written into this thing that just says, okay, everybody's salary goes down. But that's not what happens.
Well, no, but the thing is, if the cap goes down, the escrow goes down. That's what I'm saying.
The escrow goes down, but if they didn't get the escrow back last year, which is possible, that would be the first time in the 12 years or whatever of escrow that they haven't gotten it. So that's definitely. And this is all tied to the Canadian dollar. So I don't know why we can't just tie this to the Canadian dollar and call it a day. This is the problem of the NHL is that everybody is paid in American money.
Yeah, but they can't change that until the CPA expires 2022. So this is the battle fought.
The battle that will be fought will be over that. It'll be over the escrow. It'll be over. In my opinion, the salary cap. All contracts should be linked. It should not be 20 million. It should not be like $8 million a year. It should be 17% of the cap, or something like that. That's really because then if the cap goes up or down, players' salaries rise or lower. The problem is that they make these 6 years at $8 million, and we don't know what the hell is going to happen to the cap. So I think you could get players for cheaper if the cap kept going up, because you could actually say you're going to get 17% of the cap. The cap's rising by $2 million a year. That's another more money for you every year.
Right, but again, it's based on you can't artificially increase the cap. You're only going to increase the cap based on revenue. And
revenue has to be exactly. There has to be. You're right. There has to be a completely. In my system,
I got something that will satisfy the players. You know what you do? Keep the cap the same. Raise the cost of an ELC contract.
Maybe try.
All right, I'll try like that.
Say that again, Russ.
Okay. Here's my thought. Instead of raising the cap, keep the cap the same, but raise the cost slightly of the entry-level contract, because now there's more and more entry-level players in the league.
Right.
They'll start to make a little bit more money. They're the ones that need more money. The fat cats don't need more, and Yes, the fourth liners do, but now there's a lot of young players that are taking those spots. Give them a little bit more on the entry level, and then teams may hesitate before they promote everybody.
So do you mean entry level for the young guys, or do you mean minimum
entry level for any entry level for any rookie status player?
Okay, because right now entry level is $925,000 for first
so raise it to a clear $1 million.
Right.
3 years, $3 million.
Okay. I mean, I'm not sure what that solves, but I mean, I'm sure
I'll tell you what it solves. I'll tell you exactly. So what it solves is right now teams, because these players are bargains, are promoting them whether some are ready or not. We see some that are right on the edge, but they're taking spots on teams that other players who make a lot more money could play, and it saves the team money. If the players want to combat that, well, then it's like, hey, you know what? Let's reward the younger players with a little bit more. So if they do get accelerated, hey, they'll make a little bit more money than they used to because now their responsibility is greater the minute they get to a team.
Okay, what was the other business?
Okay, second business to, well, actually, there's a little quick one. Secondly, the bye week. Okay, the bye week this has just come down in the last little bit here.
Yeah.
Bettman on the bye week schedule saying it just didn't work. I love that. This is good on Batman. You know, like this is. I've heard the NHL say something like that. And it's rare for any company, you know, to sit there and say it just didn't work. You know, we've had bloggers that could say it just didn't work. You know, but this is but you know, here's a case. Yeah, that's funnier than you know. So here's a case that he's saying the bye week is going to change, and how it looks like the bye week is going to change is there's going to only be 2 bye weeks now, and half the league will take it at one point, and half the league will take it at another point. So they come out of it playing a team that was just in the bye week essentially. And therefore, you won't have any differences with teams being sharper.
You know what this is? This is saving the league from having the stat where like 3 teams won off the bye. So everybody, you know, half the Western Conference will be on the bye, the Eastern Conference will be on the bye, and 7 teams or 8 teams will win and 7 teams will lose. So it'll be even Steven. But I mean, the funny thing is that the bye goes away next year if they go to the Olympics, and as I'm sure you're probably going to touch on. You know, Bettman was no clearer today than he was yesterday regarding the Olympics.
What did he say? There's somewhere between frustrated and apathetic or something like that?
Yeah. It's okay. He may be putting on the best face in the world, but it's clear from his rhetoric and from the point of view that's been expressed over the last few months, they don't want to go.
We're focused on a schedule that doesn't include the Olympics right now, Bettman said. So I don't think it's that they don't want to go. I think that, again,
they see no benefits in that.
If it's
that's right. I think we should just live with the comment and move on. It's not even worthy of.
It's worth noting, okay, real quickly, that what Bettman says and what the NHL say publicly. Remember, this is my bread and butter was the lockout. That's when I came into this whole world, right? And I'm really good at business stuff with that kind of stuff, and talking to people. And I know people involved in this. What they're saying publicly is always calculated. All right, so when he says right now we're doing it doesn't include the Olympics, that's like saying right now we're planning on not buying that car from you. You know that we're gonna you know, and that's what's happening. These are still negotiations. There's no question about it. There's no reason to say that kind of thing.
There's no doubt that you're right that there's internal machinations going on, and maybe there's an agenda there to extract more out of the IOC or the IIHF or the PA to get to make it more beneficial. All I'm saying is, from the outside perspective, they look like a bunch of blithering idiots.
No, I don't think that. I feel Gary's fatigue, and I want to move on.
That's fine. We can't move on. We don't know anything else about this right now. But let's move on to the real topic of business, and then we'll spend like 10 minutes on this. Then we'll get into the games because that's probably more interesting to everybody. But the real topic of interest now is the Arizona. You know, and I just learned to say the Arizona. I just learned to say Arizona.
Well, you might have another year that you could say it.
They were like my daughter was dating a guy, and I went, do I have to learn his name? He's going to stick around. So I just learned to say Arizona. The Arizona Coyotes, who are now looking like they really could legitimately be in trouble. This to me is and I talked to somebody today, and you know, all this whole time I've always said the NHL is going to keep the Arizona there. Whatever happens, it's going to end up, they're going to keep them there. And that's always been my message, because that's always been what I've heard. This is the first time that I hate to say this because I know so many Coyotes fans, and they're great fans, but I think that this is real trouble. Now we're getting into government, stuff. We're getting Bettman sending letters to the Arizona legislature. This is when things are, and they're trying to get a bill crossed now that'll pay for the. This is really starting to look like too little, too late in a lot of ways, because they got sideswiped by this losing of the college thing. Right.
The Arizona State deal falling through. I mean, like I said, we still don't know why it fell through, but this referendum that's being floated in Arizona, that it's basically a tax break to get the arena built. Right now the indications are that it's like 2-1 against this. So I mean, they're flying in the face of public sentiment when it comes to getting an arena built. Now, okay, the Glendale thing is a disaster. It doesn't work. They can't make a profit. That's what Bettman said in his ultimatum yesterday. I don't know why there hasn't been more of an effort to get them and the Phoenix Suns together, because they're playing in the America West Arena in downtown Phoenix, which is an older building. You would think that the Suns would want to pair up with the Coyotes and build a new building, and maybe the Coyotes don't want to go to downtown Phoenix. All I know is that a friend of mine who lives in Arizona let me know about the ultimatum yesterday, and when they talked about this, is hockey's just not that popular in Arizona that they're going to give over hundreds of millions of dollars in tax breaks to build a stadium that only 8,000 people will go to see the game.
Here's a reality, and Mike brought this up. When Austin Matthews went into Arizona to play for the Leafs for the first time, they didn't sell out. They didn't even particularly do great in attendance. I don't know what the TV viewing audience was, but I'm going to be willing to bet that this Major League Baseball spring training game had a better audience. And that's because it's just not a passion in Arizona. There are people that have moved there. How many name changes are you going to do this team? Like the Seals were the California Seals, the Oakland Seals. Like, are they going to go through a third name change? Come on.
Yeah, the California Golden Seals.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no.
At some point, you have to
teams
just
with adjectives, teams with adjectives. I've never been a fan of teams that have adjectives in their names, honestly.
And not only did they not sell out, it was 2 days before Christmas, and I believe it was on a Friday night. And you're talking about the prodigal son returneth, Austin Matthews coming back to Arizona, and they didn't sell out. So what does that say? I mean, it's a one game standalone thing, but it says a lot about hockey in that area, that for a kid who grew up in Scottsdale, that they couldn't sell out for that. A guy who's probably going to be the Calder Trophy winner. So I don't know. I mean, I think
you want to have more people show up to hockey games in that area. Have them start at 4:00. That's when the old people go out to eat.
No, you want to start having people go to those games. How about being a good team? How about winning?
Well, that's what's hurting them now. You're right.
Putting a product.
It's not just. It's not. Listen, you have to realize that there's the history of this team has been awful, in terms of what they've had to deal with. I mean, in terms of the fact that
you can go back and look at their historic attendance numbers, and then the same excuses come up. Well, this wasn't right, and that wasn't right, and they had a great team.
Building nicely until the whole Basili thing happened, and then things started to go back. There was a build. There was a consistent build with them, and they were getting there. And it was not, and then that happened, and then there were a couple years of crazy fluctuations of, is the team going to be there? Is it not going to be there? And impossible to sell tickets ahead of time. Every year, like when they had to get their, I know people who do the marketing for this team. Every year when they had to do their marketing campaigns, it would be like clockwork. The second day, like, okay, we got to get next week we start our big season ticket campaign run, and they would something went hard.
Number one in the state are the Arizona Cardinals. They've never won anything, but they get supported. They've had 2 or 3 stadiums already,
and they play across the street from where the Coyotes play.
Right,
and they never were good. They never were in danger of.
But they sell out. That's the point. They don't have problems with attendance.
But they only have 8 games. They only have 8
games. It's like one thing to drive out there on a Sunday afternoon. Okay. Another thing to drive out there on a Tuesday. It's like I've talked to people about this. It's the place is not. It's not the best place to go.
No, and as I've said, I mean, it's a 45-minute drive.
You did the drive, Mike. You did
from Scottsdale to Glendale through Phoenix during drive time. It's a tough road to hoe. But the the thing that's
45 minutes. I mean, but seriously, if you really want to go, Eck, how long does it take you to get to a Flyers game?
45 minutes to an hour.
Thank you.
and it takes me an hour and 45 minutes to get to a Toronto game. But we're hockey diehards. These are people who you're trying to get the.
I mean, most of the Flyers fans can get there within 10 minutes. You know, like most of the Flyers, like I used to live in South Jersey, and it was 15. Like when I lived in Cherry Hill, it was 15 minutes away. You know, so it was completely. You know, the bridge. It's very convenient. The Flyers Stadium is a very convenient place. It's in.
The biggest thing they have going against them now is they're a bad team, and to try and sell them to the legislature when they haven't improved as a team is now a very tough sell.
But this is all played on itself. You know, this is all. Yes. It's been. But I will never. And this is where I get really pissed off about this thing. I will never sit there and say that Bettman and the NHL were wrong to do this, because I think they were completely 100% right to try this. And to work as hard as they did at it.
I'm not saying they were wrong to do it. I'm saying there's a time when you have to end it.
No, and I think that's what's becoming apparent. And I think that is, and I think that they now have their, I think for lack of a better term, and the NHL won't be happy about me saying this, they now have their excuse in a way. And they because they really, from Balsillie on, and I still believe if it wasn't for Jim Balsillie, that team might not be there now. Like, I think that Balsillie really united the NHL behind. They weren't gonna have a person do that to them. So therefore, they were not going to let that precedent sit. So Phoenix became bigger than it should have been. But for the NHL, they went in harder.
Balsillie forced the NHL to buy that team rather than let them
and not just buy it, but like really emotionally buy it too. Like, absolute, you know. And there are people, at the NHL who really are emotionally tied to this working. That their job.
Sure. Listen, I think it was a good try. I get the TV aspect. John Ziegler is the one who put the TV part of it in motion. Gary Bettman picked it up after him. I get it.
Remember, 4.7 million in that metro area. Okay, which is the equivalent of Boston.
But half of them are sleeping after 7 o'clock.
It's a top 10 TV market in the United States. We get the motivation of why
only Toronto in Canada is bigger, right?
But it doesn't matter. These people are not tuning in.
I mean, we understand the reason why the league bent over backwards to keep them. I agree that they should have done it. There are people in Canada who don't. But you know what? As Russ said, the time is over with now.
I'm with you, Mike. I'm with you. And I think that I'm the first time I really feel like it might. I mean, I hate to see a team leave. So I hate to say that, but I think that from a business perspective, they can look at this as a success, and they can say, okay, we've grown more hockey fans than you know, even if you say they have 8,000 people paying for tickets, there's a lot of fans that watch the games out there. There's a lot of fans who can't afford to go to the games. There's a lot of fans who won't drive out to go to the games. So
can we say this?
If they put a second team in Toronto, they would have created less fans than they did by putting a team.
Okay, let's say this. When we noticed that Arizona, before they were Arizona, was really having trouble, why didn't they have really cheap tickets all the time? They had certain perks, and people were taking advantage of them, but they didn't have that all the time. Mike, how much did your ticket cost when you went there?
Well, I was sitting in the lower level, and it was $75.
Right.
And that's commensurate with Buffalo. I mean, Buffalo would be a little higher, but still.
Now, I knew Ranger fans that could go there and sit in the upper level for $5.
Right. Well, you can always go on StubHub and get it.
Right. But my point is, they needed to adjust to the market price-wise, but they didn't because of the bad parking deal. I get it, but you weren't going to win that. So you probably should have tried with volume, but they didn't do it.
Now, and we'll talk about this, on a slow day, because this isn't going to get solved until the end of the season. But the question is, will this be the quick parachute into Quebec, or will this be waiting a year or two until Seattle gets their act together? That's what I want to talk about. But we got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, actually, we didn't even talk about this amazing performance by Ryan Miller. 367 saves.
367 saves. Wow, that's something else. I'm impressed. Jeez.
But he got the third star. The writers got it wrong.
No wonder they didn't want to trade him.
But he only got the third star.
Yeah, that's hard, man. There's people who feel like the writers in Canada are against Vancouver. I agree with you, definitely.
West Coast bias.
Oh, for sure. All right, let's go to the NHL standings, shall we? Last night we had my first losing night in the projected standings for us. Thank you very much. We went 4-5. last night. So but that's still we're still misses at 38-13 or something like that. Still like over 700% winnings on the year. But 4-5 last night with a couple really interesting games.
Well, the lead score.
I don't know why my computer thinks New Jersey can beat Columbus because it's proven twice now that it can't. Okay, so I'm really upset with that.
We warned your computer.
And put in that Columbus is going to lose to New Jersey, and knowing that it wouldn't happen again yesterday, and so freaking frustrated by that. But I have to go with what my computer says. This is not me predicting. So, but no, I hope my computer next time if they play. New Jersey hasn't even scored on Columbus in 2 games. Go out there. It's been 2 shutouts the Columbus has had against them in the last week. Anyway, but the Flyers, they beat what looked like an absolutely terrible Sabres team last night, and that is the worst Sabres team I've seen in years. And this goes back to I guess part of it was just the fact that they were just defeated mentally, but I want
that Claude Giroux goal, the one that it took forever for Bilesma to. By the way, they gave him 2 minutes to.
What did you hear Keith Jones on that?
Yes.
That was hilarious because they go to is that goal going to be tested? The referee is standing while Bilesma looks at the thing on an iPad, and I'm like, wait a second, that's not how this is supposed to work.
No, go to do the face-off. Don't give him 2. They gave
Jones is like they gave him a whole lot of time to decide what
he decided. But here's the thing. And they did, and they still got it wrong. Here's the thing, though. That goal was everything that you hope fans don't hang on Robin Lehner, because there was a great first shot. He makes the great first save. He can't hold it because it's like in a weird spot. It's under his arm. He makes it. There is nobody to clear the puck. Not a defenseman in sight. Giroux's there by himself.
You're leaving Claude Giroux, who's like one of the leading scorers in the NHL over the last 5 years. All by himself. And I want to sit there and say that Robin Lehner is my least favorite goalie in the NHL.
Nah, I disagree.
No, and I'm going to say why. And I'm not saying he's terrible. He's a good goalie, obviously, but I'm just saying from my perspective, what I like in goalies, he is exactly the opposite of it.
Okay.
I am a big fan of goalies who, I remember when I interviewed Bernie Perrant, I'm going to name drop there. Boom. I interviewed Bernie Perrant. And he told me that there were 2 different kinds of goalies. There's goalies that made saves and there's goalies that stopped the puck. And I've always been a fan of goalies that make saves. And that was like, Tim Thomas is that way. Jonathan Quick is that way. Neuwirth is that way. And then there's goalies that stop the puck. Mason's in that category. But Mason will also make saves. He's in the middle somewhere. And then Carey Price is like stop the puck goalie who can also make saves. I put him in that Mason category. There's a middle category there. But then there's Bruce Gallup, okay, who just the puck hits him. Like it's all about the puck hitting him.
Right.
I used to think Anderson, who's on Toronto, was like that too. But I don't think he has been as much this year because he has no defense. He's got to play a little bit differently.
Right.
But I think that, but now when I watch Lehner, he is the epitome of a goalie that blocks pucks but doesn't make saves. And he is, because he's so big, he moves so. His movements are, and I haven't watched enough Buffalo this year, so I apologize for this, but his movements are so intentional with everything he does. And he acts like, he reminds me of when you're playing against, in open hockey, when you're playing against a really good goalie who's playing against other players who aren't as good. They're just barely moving, but they're making saves. He really depends on luck in so many instances. Like
he depends on being big. He uses economy.
He's just
economy of motion is what he does, and
you'll see him like on a pass across where you'll see a lot of goalies will make the dive, slide across, the leg, the head's going up. He is literally just moving his leg like this, boom, just a chick out to the side. That's it, nothing else. Just he's not, and there are a couple times when you're like, how can you even say it's a great save when all he did was move his leg to the left a little bit? Like he's not doing anything. I'm sorry, that's just a rant on Robin Lehner. I was just
great save last night. The puck from going over the goal line. That's the end result. I mean,
I know, honestly, and I'm just saying that's why I don't want to say he's the worst goalie in the NHL. I'm just saying he's the least favorite of my kind of goalie.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but I mean, what I learned from that game is, the Buffalo defense. I mean, Jack Eichel had a very good game. I think it was 2.
He had a great game.
Had a great game.
Phenomenal out there.
And other than that, and Evander Kane scoring the 1 goal, it was
good. Evander Kane looks really good too.
It was a complete mail-in from the Sabres, especially on defense. And Philadelphia played, I think, with the requisite amount of desperation for a team that is in a playoff race, and they kept pace
Yeah.
With Toronto, who won, and we'll get to that one in a minute, and the Islanders, who won in Edmonton. Now that sets up a pretty big matchup at the ACC tomorrow night, because that, if Philadelphia wins, I believe they pass or they tie Toronto.
Yeah, the Philadelphia matches up horribly against Toronto. like that.
Well, yeah, because
they match up against Buffalo, they match up terribly against Toronto. So
they do match up, because the problem is Philly doesn't have big centers. Toronto does.
And they don't have this. They don't have
now with Boyle there. That's really going to be a matchup problem for the Flyers.
They don't. They don't have the big defense to clear guys either. So they're you look at those are two things that are really. And Mason does not play well against Toronto either. So
maybe they'll go Neuwirth. I mean, but the thing is, Toronto can't clear Shen and Simmons and those guys away from the front of the net either. I mean, they were lucky last night that Detroit is so horrid. Just to follow on the goal review of in the Philadelphia Buffalo game, they took over, I'd say it was about 5 minutes to clear the Marchenko goal, the goal 1 minute and 5 seconds into the first period. And this is the thing that we're gonna have to deal with when it comes to the playoffs, Zach. You're gonna have, because playoff goals obviously are more important than goals in the regular season. We're gonna have 8 to 10 minute delays going over and over and over. Replays in the playoffs because of the importance of the goal, and that will be dreadful to watch.
I agree.
It will be horrible.
I agree. I do think that there needs to be a statute of limitations. Like there has to be a clock that starts to run after a goal that says, okay, the goal at that point, like someone has to hit a stopwatch. Goals happen. Boom. You've got 1 minute to challenge it. That's it. If not, if you don't challenge it, because you can't let what happened last night happen. It was insane. No. I mean, it was a perfect case of Baalsma cashing in some of his currency that he's collected over the years by being just nice to referees. Like Baalsma, I've heard Baalsma is a great guy. Like the referees all say, when you ask them who's your favorite coach, they'll say Baalsma. Baalsma's like always fair.
Yeah.
No, he's always fair. But last night was the perfect. That's what I kept thinking about when they were giving him all that time. Like, wow, they're just giving him all this time because he's Dan Baalsma. And
let's talk about this Florida game for a minute, because for everything we've talked about with Florida, like the beginning of the year, hey, they might be a playoff team. Mike and I weren't on board because of their defense, right? We looked at the defense. Right. We said there was too much movement on it. We didn't pick them for the playoffs, if I remember correctly. Yes. So last night, they, for about a week or more, they've had everybody back, and they played a pretty dead game against the Rangers. Now, Lundqvist had to make some great saves, definitely. But for the most part, you didn't see the best game out of their best players. And their defense was atrocious. Like there was a play, this Kevin Hayes goal was a shinny goal. All he did was make one extra move, and James Reimer absolutely
S-H-I-N-N-Y, by the way, is just S-H-I-N.
and just absolutely bit at it. And James Reimer had to come out of that game for Rito Berra. And the funny thing is I can make you the argument that Rito Berra is every bit the goalie that James Reimer is, except they gave Reimer the money.
Well, and see, this is the thing, because I've had extensive experience at James Reimer. When the tough gets going, James Reimer disappears, and that is the case. He did it constantly in Toronto. He's doing it now. He gives up 2 goals on 6 shots against the Rangers, a team that had played in Tampa Bay the night before. Luongo is out. They have to rely on Reimer, and this is where I think right now. Look at the record that the Panthers won 5 games in a row on the road. They come back home. They have 6 of the next 7 of the next 8 at home. They've lost to Edmonton, Calgary, Ottawa. They beat Carolina in a shootout. And then they came back to lose 2-1 to Dallas, lose to the Rangers. And let's see, the last game is against Minnesota on Friday. So I'm going to really bet against the Wild on that one.
And Tanner Glass scored. That's all you need to know.
I will say this about Reimer, just to counterpoint, okay? I don't disagree with you that he's come up small in big games before, but he also is the only reason Florida's even in this race, because
that's fair.
Like the last couple of weeks, he was on fire, and he went on their road trip. He was unbeatable, and he was.
But this is a home game that he had to win.
Oh, I know, and that's inconsistency. But I will also say this, and I think I can say this without getting in trouble, but that there were, I don't see why not. But this was off the record for a while. Florida turned down a lot of offers for James Reimer this year.
I'm sure.
Teams were trying to get him. Like Boston tried to get him. I think Calgary tried to get him at one point. I know LA tried to get him for sure. Reimer was like they were amazed at how many calls they were getting on Reimer. And because people do see him as a really good backup.
Well, but Ak, they signed him to 5 years at almost $4 million. So
yeah, which is what I'm saying, which is why it was all the more astonishing that they were getting calls on. They really.
But here's the weird thing, Ek. The things that we didn't like about Florida, we talked about at the beginning of the year. Luongo's getting older. Well, now he's been partially injured. The defense there was too new. Well, they are still too new because even a guy like Keith Yandel had zero impact on the game yesterday. Zero. Maybe less than zero. Mike Matheson had less than zero impact on that game. He's had some good games. Don't get me wrong. Matheson's had a pretty good year.
Big free agent signing Jason Demers -3. They spent almost $5 million on him.
So this is and Tom Rowe really showed like no emotion behind the bench. Like to me, this was a very important game for Florida because if they could have strung this win with what they did on the road, they could have like really shown their fans, hey, you know what? We are really in this. Now they're in it via points, but I sort of question now when they start playing some of these tough teams, how they're going to play.
Yeah. No, that's.
Yadler looks like he's wearing down. Let's be real about this too.
Oh yeah. No, he is definitely. They can't depend on him as much as they've depended on him. And you've got to use him in the right ways. And he is what he is. He's gotten them points. He's a coach on the bench. He's all the things you want from him.
Yeah.
A couple other things that happened last night that were really interesting beyond these games. First of all, the fact that like you talked about the Islanders winning in Edmonton. The Islanders never win in Edmonton. Edmonton needed this win very badly.
They did.
And actually, according to so you'll see my projection thing I'm putting out now. This actually knocked Edmonton into the second wild card as the projected final standings. This loss, and that's from going from third place in their division down to this by this one loss. This was a major game for them that they had to win. This really put the Islanders almost solidified all 8. According to my thing, almost solidified all 8 playoff spots. But they're still obviously when you look at the actual. This is just
there's a lot of games.
The Islanders have such an easy schedule, and I want to make this clear. Like like I said before, if I should rename my projected thing. I want to know if you guys the what should happen final standings, because that's really what they are. They're basically just like if teams that should beat other teams beat other teams, this is what happens. If the Islanders can beat the teams they should beat the rest of the way, they are in. And that's the bottom line. They need to be upset by teams that are behind them to lose out. And this game last night was hugely important for them and setting up the other way. And also another team that really set themselves up last night in a big way was St. Louis, beating the Wild, like that in over. I mean, this is a team that they've been in and out. Now you're looking at right now they're at the second wild card spot, but they have like one of the easiest schedules left in the NHL as well, and they could very easily. And I really do believe they'll end up in third in the Central. I think Nashville's a wild card team. I think that's flat out the case. So
you want an indicator of how easy the Islanders' schedule is? 5 of their remaining, I think they have 18 games remaining, are against Carolina and New Jersey.
Right. So and New Jersey to the Islanders can be tough. Okay. So New Jersey can be tough to any of those teams, any team in the Atlantic, in this area, in the metro area. New Jersey can give the Devils can give the Rangers, Islanders, and Flyers all fits. But
sure. But
still, you're right. I mean, the Islanders are going to have so much to play for in those games. And this New Jersey team is a very different New Jersey team playing a different way than the past New Jersey teams have. So that's possible too. You're right.
Can you translate that? They're a bad team. Is that the translation?
They're just
they're a bad team. Let's say it. Come on.
But bad. See but what Ak is saying, and I agree. Bad teams, when it comes to playing against rivals, can win because they're rivals.
Yeah, sure.
That wasn't the case.
This team has so little scoring that I question that.
Right.
A couple things that really stood out to me today. First of all, Florida actually, even though they lost and they played horrible last night, for some reason, because of their schedule coming up and because of other things that happened last night, is the leapfrog Boston back in the playoffs in my projected standings, which is really funny. And not only that, but the matchups for them, being third in the Atlantic, because that's where they would fall. They're not a wild card team; they'd be third in the Atlantic. The matchups for them favor them incredibly because they play Ottawa really well. They play Montreal really well. These are two teams that they really have dominated. So,
but who's in net? If Reimer's in net, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I know. But it's interesting how they could go from not being in the playoffs to being a conference finalist almost in my thing the way it works out. So that's the hearsay here there. But it's just interesting to see how these. I'm a big fan of like that, but the butterfly theory of like one thing happens here and all these other things follow, and that's true in hockey all the time. So we'll see how that plays out. But so last night also you had what was the other game I wanted to talk about? There was another really good one.
Islanders at Edmonton.
Yeah, the Islanders Edmonton. We talked about that a little bit. They were just it was a really big game for them. And I guess that was it. And Vancouver played incredibly well against Montreal, even though Montreal won that game. That's Montreal's quietly, Claude Julien has 5 wins in a row in Montreal.
What about the Leafs game?
Oh yeah, in the Leafs game, we did talk about that a little bit.
I'll just say this: Detroit is a mess. They've obviously dumped at the deadline, traded Yurko, traded Vanek, traded Brendan Smith. The Leafs were up 3-0 in the second period. Detroit scores late in the second, early in the third, and then the Leafs against Detroit, a team that is playing shorthanded, were holding on by their fingernails. That is the problem. This is a young team with a lot of offense, a lot of positives into the season. They could very well make the playoffs, but the problem is that adding Brian Boyle and adding Eric Fair, who hasn't played a minute yet, if they were really interested in making the playoffs, those were not the moves they needed to make.
Boyle won a big face-off at the end of the game to keep it away from the Red Wings.
Wonderful. That's great. I'm not saying it's
a bad win. By the way, Mike is saying this is a bad win.
I'm saying that it's not a convincing win, Russ, because they've been playing losing hockey. They went 5 losses in a row. They barely beat one of the bottom dwellers in the league 3-2 at home.
So this is a bad 2 points.
No, this
is an example of that's a good 2 points, but it's an example of the fact that it is not easy to make the playoffs in Toronto. Is
right, but they still won.
Right.
I agrees with me. You take the 2 points and you run with it. But all I'm saying is the next 3 of the next 4 games are against Philadelphia, Florida, and Tampa. There's your season. They lose
Philadelphia, Carolina, and Florida. Try that.
No, I'm just saying in the next week they play the 3 teams that are immediately trailing them.
And they play Carolina. That's a game you have to win. You simply
have to win. But it's also a team, even though they're slumping now, that they've always had trouble with.
But can't you experience a little joy, Mike? Your team is actually in it.
I'm not a fan here. I'm looking at them objectively.
I know. But even the fan in you, there has to be a little bit of joy. It's better than if they were.
I'm the first to rip on Mike, but I'm going to go on Mike's side on this one, Russ. I'm going to go with Mike on this one because I think that he's right that this is. The win is the win, but the fact is that this team, the next, you're right. The next 4 games are their season. They really have.
That's fine. You could look at that and say, hey, the next 4 games are the next 4 games. But if we went back and rewinded this show to last season, we had this kind of discussion like, hey, what if they were competitive? And now we were right about Mike and we were sort of right that they might be competitive and might surprise people.
Thought they'd be right on the bubble, and they are right on the bubble. That's where they are, and they really are. That's what I thought they would be at least. And I also, by the way,
they've done better than I thought because I didn't pick them for the playoffs, and most people didn't.
Everybody and their brother thought that they were going to be a bottom 5 team because nobody expected Matthews and Marner to be this good this quickly.
I did not have them as a bottom 5 team, if you remember. And I also
that's fine. Mike's right though.
I'm not the brother of anybody else because I am not him as a bottom 5 team, and I also want to note that I had Ottawa second in the division. So and I got last.
I had Ottawa last place in the league.
Right. So and Ottawa, this is what I wanted to talk about. Okay, as good as Montreal has been, there's something crazy going on with Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
They are just it's really just it's phenomenal to watch. They are, I think, let me get them this up here. 2 points back, right?
Yeah, it started with the reaction.
No, they're 6 points back.
Yeah, it started with the way the team reacted to the Craig Anderson scenario with his wife. Everybody had sympathy with that, but they sucked it up behind Condon, behind Andrew Hammond for a time, and they lost Clark MacArthur in training camp. Basically, never got him back for the season. That was a top 6 forward for them. They've lost some of their key players to injury. They've been resilient, and now they've got most of their players back. They add Burrows at the deadline. Burrows has scored 3 goals since they acquired him.
Bobby Ryan back, right? He's like one of their top players.
Who is? I'm sorry,
Bobby Ryan. He's not back yet, right?
He's not back yet, but they got Stone back. They got Hoffman back. Turris is having a good year. Brassard has fit in well. Okay,
they're 6 points back, but they have 3 games in hand. So that's why I was saying,
yes.
You're right. And yeah, you're right. So I think the issue here is
you got the math wrong, Eck. That's all I want to point out.
So I know they're closer, and my thing has the teams tied in Montreal winning the division on regulation wins. I mean, the schedule the rest of the way is really kind of crazy. Ottawa has a pretty easy schedule. Montreal's got a tougher schedule.
Listen, I was completely 100% wrong about Ottawa. I admit it.
I mean, it's not. It was tough.
I still think there's hope they finish last.
Stop it.
And I'll tell you the thing that's crazy here is the team that no one is talking about, and I will keep banging this home because of the schedule they have, because of the way they've been playing lately, is the Dallas Stars are still a problem. And everybody's written them off because this is not, Dallas has been really good all these years, and they never snuck into the playoffs. I'm telling you, they are still a problem.
I mean, they're in it. I mean,
they're in it more than you think because they have the easiest schedule left in the world. They play Colorado.
I'll still take the Kings over the Stars with 1 game in hand. I'll bet you on that.
I'll definitely bet you on that. You got
all right, $5.
I mean, the Stars.
You should have used your computer because you betting me, your history is not very good.
No,
the Stars right now are 7 points behind St. Louis. I mean, that's 7.
But all he has to do, Mike, all the Stars have to do is come in ahead of the Kings now.
All the Stars have to do is make a wild card. They can actually.
Right, that's all they have to do.
So that wild card is, that to me, they will. One of those teams is going to make the wild card, right? That's what you would think. Well, no, actually, that's not true.
Because Winnipeg's still sandwiched in there, and they have more points.
And, Nashville would have to be knocked out for them to.
They played the most games, though. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that schedule for the Stars. Let me go through this with you guys. This is really insane. And this is why now tonight they play Ottawa. Okay, but they have destroyed Ottawa. This is another team. This is the Capitals the other night. They beat the Capitals because they have a history of being really good against Capitals. The only team that they're less good against than the Capitals is the Senators. The Senators, they have they're playing these teams that are crazy good. Then they go to the Sharks. That's a tough game for them. Edmonton, Vancouver.
Honestly, I don't see how they make up 7 points. They have to catch St. Louis. St. Louis is at 71. They're at 64.
I think they have to catch Nashville, actually. I honestly think that's how it's going to play out because I think St. Louis has such an easy schedule that they're going to make it through. I think Nashville's the only team they can catch.
Right.
Or perhaps they could catch Calgary or Edmonton if one of those fall out. That's really how I see it playing through. But those are the other spots that could fall out. And Edmonton, I don't think is going to fall out, but.
You're talking about a massive. I mean, it's not unprecedented.
Yeah, no, it's along the lines of where Philadelphia was last year at this point. Honestly, it's in the same kind of boat. And Philadelphia made it, and it's very funny because last year my thing did predict Philly to come in, and I went back and I reviewed like the way it had Philly getting in and the way it has sort of Dallas. It doesn't have Dallas getting in, but it has Dallas falling short by 1 point. So something could happen. So it's kind of like we'll see how it plays out. But
I do have breaking news if you want it.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So Tim Tebow is just up. 1-2 count. Rick Porcello is a great pitcher, as Mike knows. Yeah. He throws it right down the pipe. It looked like a breaking ball. Tebow doesn't swing. He's frozen. The umpire gives him the little extra this, and Tebow stops and stares at the umpire. That's the problem with this whole Tim Tebow effect right there.
Russ, you know what he was doing? He was doing an homage to Carlos Beltran.
Yeah.
Stop. Just stop. No, but I'm just saying, that's the problem with this whole Tim Tebow effect is there is an ego there too.
Yeah, no, don't make any mistake about that. Yes. He's a good guy, but he's also a brand.
A professional athlete.
Yeah. He's also a brand. He's a brand himself.
He's a brand. No, my ex right. He's a brand.
And
and he didn't like getting called out. And you know what? Baseball's a tough sport, man. It's hard.
This is the one thing I do like, and I don't like baseball. But the one thing I do like about baseball is the fact that it is just
it's humbling.
Holding penalty?
No, that's what he's used to from umpires and refs.
No, baseball is purist. Baseball. The amazing thing about baseball is the fact that it is the only team sport that is a one-on-one sport as well.
Right.
And the fact that you have this one-on-one aspect of pitcher versus hitter is phenomenal. And then it turns into a team sport after the pitch. Yep. That I love. That part I love. And so you can't just suck at it and get away with anything because you have to beat not only the pitcher, you got to beat the team out there too. So it's really hard. And the pitcher at the end of the day, if Tebow can't hit,
humbling. Like he's now facing a great pitcher. It's not like he's getting reported that he's hit 9 home runs in batting practice. In batting practice, they want you to hit the ball.
No, they're just lobbing balls up. Did you see that, by the way? That was just before we get out of here. There was a really funny thing the other day. It was it was I guess it was Maddox on the old pitcher from.
Oh yeah,
Greg Maddox.
Yeah, he got dressed up.
So what he did was he dressed up as a field guy, like he was fixing the fields, and someone went out to hit. Someone was going out to do batting practice, and the batting practice pitcher says, they were basically throwing with something.
They think they got pulled muscle in their arm, and
I gotta go. And this guy was like all his beard and everything dies. He was like digging up the grass. Says, I'll pitch. He's like, oh yeah, to his major league hitters, and in batting practice, he's like, and the major league hitter's like, I forget who it was, but it was really a pretty famous hitter.
I think it was like Bryce Harper or something like that.
Something like that. And he's like, yeah, right. I can pitch a little bit.
It was Chris Bryant from the Cubs.
There you go. Yeah, he's pitched a little bit. So he goes. So Maddox goes and grabs the ball and just is throwing like 90-mile-an-hour pitches at this guy, and with just covered with mud and with this big giant beard. It was classic.
He's an all-time great. I mean,
that's a great thing. I mean, it's classic. I really love that. I love when teams go out of their way to do something fun like that and interesting. That's what makes the internet great. All right. Well, tonight there are not that many games tonight. There's 3 games tonight. And before we get to the NHL simulator, let's just talk about the games tonight. Tonight we have hold on.
The 3 games. Red Wings, Bruins. This will be big for the Bruins. This is the Wednesday night rivalry night, and I don't know what rivalry there is between the Red Wings and the Bruins, obviously. But the big game for the Bruins. Are only 2 points up on Toronto for 3rd place in the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Stars and Senators, as we mentioned before, and Pittsburgh. Sidney Crosby goes to Winnipeg to face Patrick Laine and the Winnipeg Jets, who I think are pretty much out of it. My
predictions are all wins except or what you'd expect: Pittsburgh winning, Boston winning, but I have Ottawa losing to Dallas in overtime. I don't know why my computer wants to do that, but my computer does like Dallas, like I said.
Your computer is secretly a Tyler Seguin fan.
Somehow it is, so we'll see what happens. But it's been, and the funny thing about it is, I never told you guys the story. I'm gonna say this real fast. The first time we did this thing, the first game we were gonna do was the night the Penguins were playing the Stars. And my wife, we're running the formula out, and it has the Penguins losing to Dallas. And they had just traded away all their players. And I'm telling my wife, I'm like, we got to work it so that doesn't happen. Like, that can't possibly be true. Like, there's no way. I mean, if we put this out there right away that's saying that Dallas is going to beat Pittsburgh, we're going to get laughed out of the ballpark. They're trading away all these players. I mean, maybe the whatever. And, of course, that Pittsburgh lost to Dallas that night. And then the same thing happened, but and we changed it so they wouldn't, because we actually reworked the whole formula so that Pittsburgh could not beat Dallas, and then we stuck with that formula for the rest of the way. So it's been pretty good. Anyway, we'll talk to you guys soon. Remember, without the buzz, it is just
the Draft Lottery Simulator.
Sorry, gosh, I'm an idiot. Here we go. I brought it up and everything, and I was just embarrassed by my story. So let's continue here. Here we go. The winner is the Dallas Stars. We just thought, this is the Stars show today.
This is rigged. This is completely rigged.
Stars show today. That's
go second and third.
Second up, the Buffalo Sabres, who are always the bridesmaid Buffalo Sabres. I'll say that.
They were second yesterday.
They were second for McDavid. So let's just remember they are second all the time.
Always second.
And then finally, the Winnipeg Jets. So there you have your top 3.
It's interesting. I kind of wonder what the Jets would do at third. That would be an interesting thing, because, like, let's say Hischier goes second, you would think they would take Liljegren. Like, that would be great for them.
Maybe they would take the Finnish defenseman, because it's Laine.
Nah, I don't think they would go that route. I mean, I don't think Valimaki goes that high.
I just don't think they'll take another forward. If there's a viable defenseman, I think they'll take a defenseman, because they have so many forwards right now.
That's what they should do, but we don't know how. The funny thing is when teams have a board, they really go by the board.
They do. They have to, because it's otherwise.
So we don't really know who they're going to have on their board. Who's going to be ranked higher. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, they have a lot of. Maybe they trade that pick. Maybe Winnipeg trades a pick, because
I could see this year. It hasn't happened in a lot of years, but I could see this year with teams trading down spots, trading up a few spots. I could see that this year.
If the Jets could get a really good defenseman, you know, that could help them out, you know, somebody who could help them down, like somebody that's ready right now, there's gonna be a lot of trades at the draft. So I think that this draft especially is going to be insane with trades. So we'll see what happens. But
yeah, I agree.
All right, guys. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.